few weeks after handing the Ark of the Covenant into the hands of trustworthy top men, Indiana Jones makes his way to Marrakesh. There, he wants to try to track down the golden idol of the Chachapoyas that Rene Belloc stole from him in Peru. But in the Red City, Indy comes across shady beggars and greedy antique dealers. Soon it will be his motto, see Marrakesh and die, raider of his lost treasure, in Indiana Jones and the Curse of the Golden Idol.
Hello and welcome back to this damnful idealistic crusade. In this video, I'm continuing in my diving into the world of Indiana Jones expanded fiction. And I wanted to talk about the wonderful non-official story, Indiana Jones and the Curse of the Golden Idol. Now, this is an unofficial work by author Milewski, basically done of his own accord. He has a number of various series with Indiana Jones-like elements and other adventure series as well. So he's a lifelong Indiana Jones fan who has a lot of that rub off on his other published works. Apparently, he wrote this story a number of years ago for a fan convention or something, and then decided to publish it for free on the internet. So it is essentially set in the immediate aftermath, or at least roughly a couple weeks after the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, so taking place in 1936 in the chronology, and it slots in rather nicely, so you could actually see this fitting in the official Indy canon. The story itself is obviously not a full novel in terms of the EPUB or the PDF version you download from the author's website. The English translation runs about 40 pages. The actual file is longer because it actually includes the original German text and then the wonderful translation done by Rachel Schneider, who's one of the fan translators who did some of the Wolfgang Holbein novels. So you get a really wonderful translation done by a German speaker, and so there's no issues with translating German to English in terms of the text, and it reads beautifully. And even though it is a shorter story, it is wonderfully self-contained, so it's a nice standalone adventure. You don't feel like it comes up short from being only about 40 pages. So technically, this is probably more of an indie short story instead of a novella, but it is a really nice standalone adventure to spend some time with. In terms of the plot, this is, of course, focusing on Indy deciding to go off to Marrakesh and try to get the golden idol that he lost to Belloc at the start of Raiders. And this is alluded to, of course, in the dialogue, where Indy's telling Marcus all he needs is $2,000 and he'll go to Marrakesh because that's the only place Belloc could sell it on the black market. So this feels like a natural continuation of something that could have happened in the Raiders film, or have been a deleted scene, or where the next story could have picked up with Indy deciding he still really wanted that golden idol. So there are some lovely scenes that bookend this story with Marcus Brody basically against his better judgment saying, okay, Indy, the museum will give you $2,000, go look for your gold idol because I know it's burning you up inside. And there's some nice references to the events of the Raiders film, plus an allusion to Indy thinking about how even Marion was just like, okay, go find it and then come back. The bulk of this shorter story is Indy and Marrakesh dealing with the various factions in the black market, some of which he has past history with, and it's not necessarily good history, and that makes the set pieces and confrontations all the more fun and exciting. And of course, it just so happens, as perfect for any pulp adventure story, the corrupt black marketeer who deals in antiquities, who has the golden idol, isn't willing to give it up without fair compensation, and is more than willing to see Indiana Jones dead because he doesn't like him and wants him dead anyway. There's also a German contingent to deal with, as there are Nazis in Marrakesh, led by one of the officers who was working under Dietrich in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and is still sort of griping about what happened to his commanding officer and why did they all go off and never come back, and the Ark of the Covenant mysteriously disappeared. And this group of Nazis, of course, has linkages and dealings with the black marketeer, and of course, when it is revealed that it is none other than Professor Henry Jones Jr. After the Golden Idol and in Marrakesh, this stokes the fires of the Nazis' antagonism, so that automatically adds another wonderful ingredient to the pulp mixture in the pot. Indy is tasked with stealing a particular artifact away from the major antiquity competition. But of course, this is no easy feat, as not only does Indy not want to steal anything, but the proprietor of this shop is also rumored by all the locals to be a powerful witch. So then you have elements of the fantastical start to creep in addition to some wonderful side characters of a blind beggar who knows more than he says, and a wonderful sort of street urchin pickpocket, a boy character who practically attaches himself to Indy and comes in handy when the action gets hot and heavy, and is very reminiscent of Short Round from Temple of Doom without ever overdoing it, and so he remains his own distinct character and a really appealing character. So this has a lot of the proper indie flavor. There are a lot of nods to things in the films, but everything here is nicely self-contained and feels uniquely original. So it feels like it could just be another day in the life of Indiana Jones, where he decided to go back to Marrakesh and try to get the Golden Idol. Once we get the plot setup out of the way, there are some really nice set pieces and dramatic moments involving everything from Indy almost being hypnotized and having to worry about falling under someone's control, to fighting Nazis, to a foot chase in the back alleys of Marrakesh with most everyone in the town chasing after our archaeologist hero, and some nice fight sequences as well. There's also another unique artifact with mystical powers, supposedly, that comes into play in the ending, and actually there is some nice interplay between that artifact and the Golden Idol. So there actually is significance to the Golden Idol being actually in this story, outside of it being just the famous thing from the start of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And if all of that were not enough, there is a villain getting his comeuppance scene with a nicely gory death involving things in the supernatural. It is wonderfully described without overdoing it, but it hits all the right notes of indie villain gets a very well-deserved gory death scene that will stick in the audience's mind. It's a really well done one. So even though this is a short story, essentially, it starts well, it's grounded in Indy's world, the characterization is spot on, the story reads well, the plot is fun, and it concludes well, and we even get a final tag scene with Marcus Brody and allusions to Short Round as well, so it is nicely connected to the indie world. Again, this feels like just another day in the life of Indiana Jones, and you could even see this as perhaps being an issue of one of the Marvel or Dark Horse comics, in terms of it being a standalone short adventure that's well told and feels like Indiana Jones and fits within the chronology. I also want to give special attention to the astoundingly good cover art design. And you have to keep in mind, this is for an unofficial work being offered for free on the author's website. So they're not making any money out of this. And this is for a shorter story instead of a complete novel. But this artwork is just beautiful. It looks like an official book cover. It is extremely well done. The likeness of Harrison Ford is incredibly good. If I had one criticism, it might be that the Indy here looks maybe a tad older than the 1936 sort of Raiders era Indy, but that's only a minor point, because I think the likeness is fantastic. The detail, the color, the layout of everything looks great. We've got the official Indiana Jones font, and the font is correct for the actual adventure title. Then there's what looks like the sort of bright light gleaming in the background, which alludes to the artifacts. We've got what looks like the figure of either the blind beggar or the witch from the story, along with the secondary character of the young boy who becomes Indy's right hand. There's the rooftops of Marrakesh, which feature into the big city chase, because essentially our two heroes find themselves running across the rooftops and jumping from building to building while being chased. And there's even the camels on the cover, which feature into the end of the chase as well, as our heroes have to even steal a bunch of disagreeable camels who at the time have no desire to go off on a chase. And so you have a nice moment of humor even in the chase sequence, where our heroes try to steal camels out of desperation and can't get them to move, but once they do move, they go hell for leather. But I just wanted to highlight this artwork in particular because I think it's sensational. In fact, it's so good, it looks like an official book cover. So I've thought all the cover artwork designs for the fan translations and unofficial books I've looked at and read have been really fantastic, but I was really impressed by this one. Ultimately, I just wanted to talk about this story because it was so enjoyable and so fun to read. It is completely grounded in the world and atmosphere of Indiana Jones. And if that wasn't enticing enough, this is offered for free for anyone to download and read off of the author's website. So I will have links in the description below, and when you grab a copy, it has the original German text and then goes into the English translation. Plus, there's a really lovely note from the author explaining how this project even happened and how it came to be and why he decided to publish it for free on the internet for all indie fans to check out. So if you're an Indiana Jones fan, I cannot recommend this highly enough. You'll have a blast reading through it, and it's so grounded in the indie lore that you can very easily see this as happening, like maybe a week or two after the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark in terms of the chronology. And it's a very quick read, and you will be coming back to it many times because it's just so much fun. And that's the key. An indie story is supposed to have a quotient of fun. It's supposed to be a pulp adventure, and that's exactly what this is. It understands the tone and the world of Indiana Jones perfectly, so it doesn't matter that it's a shorter story. It's as good as it can be, and another of the wonderful surprises that you can find digging further into the expanded printed universe of our favorite archaeologist hero. So as always, I hope my babblings about the world of Indiana Jones have been at least somewhat fun and informative. I truly recommend this if you're at all interested. Again, I'll have links in the description, and since it's a free unofficial work, you can grab a copy, and I think you'll be so impressed you'll feel like me and be curious to check out some of the author's other works. His books are, of course, all in German, but it does look like some have English translations, so I'm curious to check out some of those now because this short story was so enjoyable. In any case, definitely check this story out and you'll really enjoy it. Also, keep supporting the incredible efforts of indie fans to not only generate new stories and material, but also the fans who put in the hard work and time of doing these wonderful fan translations and making freely available packages in terms of EPUBs and PDFs for fans to easily be able to download and read these for free. So this is, again, like all of these others that I've covered, these are fan labors of love. They are not done for profit or monetary gain in any way. And even though this is an unofficial work, it slots into the overall official indie canon beautifully, and it's just so much fun that I had to talk about it. So as always, keep reading, keep cracking the whip, and thank you ever so much for watching.